Move on to the next speaker now. It's an honor and privilege to welcome Dr. Vijay Rangarajan, who is Chief of Orbit and Oculoplasty at Arvind Eye Care Systems in Coimbatore. She will be talking on oculoplastic factor in cataract surgery, an interesting aspect to know. A very warm welcome to Dr. Vijay Rangarajan, please.
Thank you, sir. Slides.
Can you share the screen, ma'am?
Yes, sir. Are the slides seen, sir?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Okay.
You're good to go.
Yeah. So today I'll be speaking on the oculoplastic factor in cataract surgery. So as ophthalmologists, our main concern is cataracts. And as cataract surgeons, our main concern is to give the best visual outcome. And we have to take every small step to bring the best visual outcome for the patients. So while examining a potential cataract patient, we focus mainly on condition of the cornea to see if there's any corneal dystrophy, on the condition of the lens to see if there's any zonular weakness or any pseudoexfoliation, and also check the retina so that we don't get any surprises later due to macular degeneration and any other retinal problem. But condition of the lids and tear ducts are often neglected. So it has to be borne in mind that ocular adnexa can also affect the outcome of cataract surgery, because post-cataract endophthalmitis is the worst nightmare of any cataract surgery. So I'll be dealing with some of the case scenarios which we encounter in day-to-day life, and what we should do when we come across these cases and when we have to refer them to the oculoplastic surgeon. So most common cause of postponement of cataract surgery is blepharitis. 60% of adult patients or elderly patients have blepharitis. So this blepharitis can be anterior or ulcerative, and or it can be seborrheic or squamous. So the problem with this case is this condition is it can cause tear film instability, dry eye, corneal punctate erosions, and corneal ulcer. So you can see here, this is a posterior blepharitis is caused by Meibomian gland disease or Meibomian gland dysfunction. So here you can see the Meibomian glands is oil globules and also foamy secretions. So this can lead to recurrent chalazion and also corneal punctate epithelial erosion. So you can see this patient, she's got a cataract, but at the same time, she's got on the periphery some amount of marginal keratitis also, and also congestion of the conjunctiva. So the problem with these conditions is the issues which are faced mainly by the patient is after the cataract surgery, the eye is constantly irritated. There is a longer duration of inflammation, and there's a poor visual acuity after cataract surgery, and also there's a great risk of post-op endophthalmitis. So the treatment would be warm compress and lid hygiene, antibiotic ointment or antibiotic with mild steroid, artificial tears to elevate dry eye, and oral doxycycline 100 milligram can be given daily, twice a day for 1 week, and then it needs to be given daily once for 6 to 12 weeks in recalcitrant cases. So the time interval before performing cataract surgery is we have to wait at least for 21 days after starting the treatment, do bacterial culture from conjunctiva, and start pre-operative topical antibiotics at least 1 week prior to cataract surgery. The next common condition is theriasis palpebrarum, and this is caused by crab louse or very rarely head louse, and affects people living in poor hygienic condition. This condition also can cause chronic irritation and itching. Here the treatment would be trimming of the lashes at the base and mechanical removal of the lice and lashes. And next, third condition is atopic dermatitis or eczema. So you can see here, it's a bilateral but asymmetrical. They have vertical fissuring of the skin with pigmentation, and also and also the patient has got a mild ectropion here. So this condition is idiopathic and associated with hay fever, asthma, and also commonly it is associated with a generalized dermatitis. Affecting the eyes alone is very rare. Signs are periorbital darkening, thickening, crusting, and loss of lashes and blepharitis and chronic conjunctivitis. And we can treat this patient with a topical steroid and emollients to hydrate the skin and oral antihistamines. The importance of treating this condition before a cataract surgery is we have to treat the associated infection like blepharitis and chronic conjunctivitis. Another common condition is chalazion. It's a chronic sterile granulomatous inflammatory lesion of the lids. So you can see here this it's a quite large chalazion, and here it's a small one in the lateral aspect. And you can these and another chalazion which is secondarily infected with staphylococcal infection of the mebumin glands is called as internal hardiolum. This causes a tender swelling and it can discharge through the skin or the conjunctiva. And an external hardiolum, which is an acute staphylococcal infection of the lash follicle or the glands of Zeiss, which presents a tender swelling at the lid margin. So the treatment would be hot compress to alleviate the pain, topical and systemic antibiotics, epilation of the affected lash root to allow drainage of the pus, and non-resolving chalazion, we can do an incision and curettage. So what is the time interval before performing a cataract surgery? So mostly, since chalazion is it's a sterile granulomatous inflammation, whether we should perform whether we should do an INC or not is a debate. But it is prudent to wait at least for 7 days after complete resolution of the chalazion and do a conjunctival culture and also give pre-op topical antibiotics before performing a cataract surgery. And other common conditions which we encounter day to day are lid position abnormalities like ptosis. So here this patient has got a mild ptosis which is not affecting the visual axis. And this patient has got a left eye moderate ptosis which is partially obscuring the visual axis. And again, this is again a mild ptosis which is not obscuring a visual axis. So this is a case where the patients have got severe or a complete ptosis, and this patient has got moderate to severe, just again obscuring the visual axis. So again, whether we have to do the cataract surgery first or deal with the ptosis. Mild ptosis is just a cosmetic problem. So that in these cases, the cataract surgery can be done first. And with the ptosis obscuring the visual axis, fix the ptosis first and alert the patient of existing ptosis, because most of the time when the patient has got a cataract, they would not have noticed a subtle ptosis which has been present pre-op. So once the vision improves, they will blame the surgeon saying that after the cataract surgery, the ptosis has worsened. But in fact, 1% of cataract surgeries can actually worsen the ptosis because of speculum and manipulation of the eyelids. So it's very important to tell the patient pre-op if the patient has got a mild ptosis. And all patients, before doing a ptosis correction, check for dry eye status and Schimmer's test. Routinely abroad, many surgeons do above 50 years. They do a Schimmer's test for all the patients who have ptosis. And another condition which we see in elderly patients is this dermatochalasis. Here you can see a patient has got a very loose, baggy skin, bilateral condition. And here yeah, and see on raising the lids, you can see that lid is in normal position, and this patient has got a in the left eye a lateral droop or a lax lid. Here the redundant upper lid skin is very heavy and they lie on the top of the lashes, which creates a warm sticky environment which is favorable for blepharitis, especially in thin skins in the the white people. They have very thin skin. So in those people, blepharitis is very common in patients who have dermatochalasis. So the treatment, we have to refer these patients to oculoplastic surgeon for blepharoplasty. And again, ectropion, this is another common condition which we see. And here you can see the patient has got a generalized ectropion, and you can see so much of congestion and the corneal involvement. And sometimes the patient can have here, he's got a right eye of a medial ectropion, and there's a very mild generalized ectropion in the left eye. And this is a tarsal ectropion. So, and next condition, another important is inversion of the lid, that is an entropion. Here you can see this, sorry, the lid is turned inwards here and also here. And these patients can have, again, entropion can cause pseudotrichosis and corneal involvement, and also secondary infection. So to diagnose these conditions, you can do a simple test which is called as a snapback test. Here the lower lid is dissected downwards from the globe and released. The normal lid will snap back or spring back immediately on release. And if the snapback test is positive, you can do a lid tightening procedure prior to cataract surgery. And another condition we encounter and many times we miss it is trichosis. Here this patient, she is here you can see the lower lid. This is a very mild 2-3 lashes, but here she's got slightly more lashes which are they're misdirected and
Right.
touching the cornea. And if the patient has got a mature cataract and only trichosis without any lid abnormality, you can do an epilation or radiofrequency. But if there is an entropion associated with trichosis, then corneal health is a compromise. So plan for entropion correction. And if the lashes are pointing down, always suspect a floppy eyelid syndrome. So this patient came to us with chronic, like he could not open the lids. He had severe blepharospasm, and here the lids were irritated. So he came inside the OPD by tying a kerchief around the lids. And you can see on everting the lids, there's a chronic papillary conjunctivitis. This can be bilateral, unilateral. And ask and sorry, these patients always they have a habit of sleeping prone on the pillow, which causes the lid to evert, and they also have a sleep apnea. So ask the spouse whether the patient snores in the night. And so this can be treated by doing a pentagon resection of the lid before the cataract surgery to stabilize the eyelid and ocular surface to prevent nocturnal lag of thalmus and exposure keratitis. And next condition is the lag of thalmus. This could be due to facial palsy. And here again, you can, or it could be sometimes only a nocturnal mild lag of thalmus. Here this patient has got lag of thalmus with a good BELS. And this patient has got a moderate BELS. And here you can see in this patient, the BELS is very poor with the complete exposure of the cornea. And we need, these patients should definitely be reduced to referred to oculoplastic surgeon to do do a procedure that will reduce the horizontal and vertical dimension of the palpable aperture before cataract surgery to prevent exposure keratopathy, epiphora, and corneal infection. Lacrimal abnormalities, again, canaliclitis. This is caused by actinomyces israeli, and here you can diagnose easily by noticing a pouting punctum, which gives a diagnostic clue, and also there will be a pericanalicular inflammation. So treatment would be canaliculotomy and topical antibiotic for 2 weeks prior to cataract surgery. And dacryocystitis, again, here you can see this patient has got a mature cataract, but there's a pus discharge. And this patient was a one-eyed patient, but she did not have a pus discharge. She just had a mild watering. And here you can see there's a cataract, but the patient again has got a raised tear meniscus. What is very important is always do a syringing prior to cataract surgery. If there's a punctal stenosis, cataract surgery can be undertaken. And if the syringing is free, look for other causes of watering, like either a medial ectropion or dry eye. If the patient has got not free with clear fluid but mature cataract, cataract surgery can be done after the conjunctival culture and sensitivity and after giving a topical antibiotic for a couple of weeks. And again, if there is a nuclear sclerosis grade 2 or there is a mucopurulent discharge, then SAC surgery has to be done before cataract operation. So, and lastly, malignant lesions, lid lesions. Here, there you can see there is a subtle ulceration of the lid, and this also looks like just like some inflammation. And this is like a small chalazion, and and this looks, the patient told that this is present for many years, and he said it's like a nevus, and and then this, here you can see there's a ulceration of the skin with it's like a rodent ulcer. This is again a small meibomian gland carcinoma, and the patient here has got a cataract as well. And So these are frequently misdiagnosed because they're treated as inflammation or blepharitis, but blepharitis can never be unilateral or affecting only one small portion of the lid or only one eyelid. So it is usually bilateral. So proper history has to be taken as to the duration or whether there's any ulceration, any bleeding from the lesion. Look at the lashes and see whether there are any loss of lashes at that involved area or any distortion of the lid margin. And why we need to address this malignant lid lesion before cataract surgery is because we use a speculum before doing the cataract surgery. This can dislodge and cause spread of the tumor cells. So take home message: strategies for successful cataract surgery is never overlook the eyelids. Don't assume that oculoplastic issues can be addressed after the cataract surgery. If something is not isn't quite right, don't let it drop. If you feel, if you have any doubt, if the cataract surgeon is having any doubt, kindly refer the patient to an oculoplasty surgeon, because he may be dealing daily only with a cataract surgery and may not notice any subtle differences in eyelid lesion, which an oculoplasty surgeon can pick it up as soon as he sees the case. Inform the patient of the consequences of the procedure, like especially when the patient has got a very mild ectropion, we can do the ectropion surgery later. Or if the patient has got only watering and no discharge from the eye and is not willing to undergo the oculoplasty procedure, wants to address the cataract surgery first, then we can take up the surgery. We can take the patient for cataract surgery after giving antibiotic drops for 2 weeks. And so we have to inform the patient of the consequences and then reconsider. We have done many cases like that, and where we have not had infection also. And never hesitate to refer the patient to oculoplasty surgeon if there is any doubt. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Vijay. That was amazing talk and full of clinical photos, very interesting. So I have a question to you and Dr. Usha, any of you could take it. So when you talk of ptosis and cataract surgery, we understand that it is going to have a topographic and a keratometric impact because of the ptosis. So probably with the rule astigmatism. So what should a cataract surgeon know when there is a ptosis about doing cataract surgery? How it can impact the biometry?
Want to take it?
Vijay or Usha?
Yeah.
Actually, madam, in old patients, there's not much impact on the refraction or anything. It's only mainly in children where there is, they can have astigmatism or amblyopia or any refractive error, but not in a senile or involutional ptosis. So condition like ptosis can be addressed even after cataract surgery, unlike entropion or ectropion. But yeah.
Only word of caution here would be to keep the patient aware that there is a ptosis.
Yes.
Because often it's attributed to the cataract surgery. The presence of ptosis has to be informed to the patient prior to the surgery. And if it's in the if it's obstructing the visual axis, that also has to be made aware. When do you want to do the ptosis surgery is absolutely left to the patient as well as the surgeon. But what is necessary is to keep the patient informed. That's one thing I think. And as Vijay has pointed out, it's the stiff lids which can cause astigmatism. So I think the early lids, probably the early age, can cause astigmatism, and especially if it's moderate to severe.
So when the patient comes to you, has lived with the ptosis and comes to you at a point when he needs a cataract surgery, probably a gap of 3 months would be ideal. Do the ptosis correction and then address the cataract, because your IOL power calculation would be more accurate because you've done away with the astigmatism caused by the ptosis.
Actually, there's not much of an astigmatism caused in the older lids. It's usually the younger ones which cause an astigmatism. And often it's not necessary to hold it for 3 months. You can actually do it right after. In fact, most of us do it a week later or about 15 days later. So I don't think we need to wait. I'm sure the panelists on the, I think agree, because I can see them nodding. So Dr. Lakshmi, Ravindra Mohan and Milind, most of them are nodding. So I'm assuming that all of us are on the same page with regards to doing the cataract surgery post-ptosis correction.
I have two comments. One is the ptosis, of course. If it's mild, I think we like to wait, finish the cataract first. But if it's severe, of course, you have to go ahead with the ptosis correction. Now, the last series what Vijay showed, many of the patients had a saddle nose with mudderosis. I'm not sure whether there are pockets of Hansen's there. And in cases of Hansen's, one warning, the only two endophthalmitis I had in the cataract career of 15 years was a case of Hansen's. 10 years later, again a cataract surgery was done, and again he developed an endophthalmitis. He landed up with bilateral evisceration. So dermatologist gives the clearance and all that. I think we have to, when we see mudderosis and such a saddle nose, I think we have to keep in mind and pep up the antibiotics and things. I don't think a routine follow-up will be sufficient for such cases.
Yeah. One more point I really like to emphasize is, please advocate syringing, because we often think that it's a redundant procedure and just a Rho Plus is adequate. I plead the audience and also the people in the forum to continue with the syringing, because it's a very, very important test and it gives you the idea as to manage the case appropriately. A Rho Plus will just give you plus or minus, but it doesn't give what is the actual status of the passage. So I'm sure everybody is in agreement. If not, please give your suggestions.
In Hansen's, you can have Rho Plus negative and it can be fine, but there could be a component of reaction, erythema, nodosum, leprosum. It can be a late end of. That's why we have to follow them up very carefully.
Dr. Milind has got something to say.
Yes.
Yeah, regarding the Rho Plus, I remember an excellent paper by Ravi Thomas where he mentions that if your Rho Plus is negative, you better recheck it with syringing. But obviously, if you find it positive, then it's diagnostic.
So which eventually means that we have to do a syringing.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah.
And even if the syringing is, if it is clear fluid regurgitation, would you still recommend a cataract surgery in these patients, or would you go ahead with DCR and then later on cataract surgery?
This is again a very valid question and a very valuable question, because often we think that it's only the cataract which is causing the visual deficit. It could be just the tear film also causing a visual deficit. So if patients are very concerned about the visual loss because of the tear film, I think it's appropriate for us to perform the DCR surgery, because that's causing a visual deprivation in any case. So
if there is a common canalicular obstruction, like see, suppose when you're doing a syringing and you see it is a soft stop and it is a common canalicular obstruction, then it is safer to, this is if the patient has not had any DCT done.
Exactly.
A simple CC block, what would be your way of handling it? Would you take a culture and then go ahead and do it, or you can straight away go ahead and do the cataract surgery? What would you recommend?
No, I think a culture would be a good idea, because you need to also keep the safety factor in mind. We don't want to push towards feeling good about it. We also want to make sure that everything system is all right. So I would definitely recommend a culture.
Thank you, Dr. Usha.
Dr. Ravindra Mohan, please. Sir, we can't hear you.
Mohan, I think you are muted. Can you just unmute?
Sir, we can't hear you, sir.
Has he unmuted?
He has unmuted, but we can still not hear it.
Okay. So shall we go on to our next speaker?
Dr. Milind.
Dr. Milind?
Yeah, just one comment.
Yes.
I would like to really commend Vijay for a very relevant talk. It was fantastic. And I just wanted to add 2 points. One is sometimes you can have patients with spasm and cataract. And usually you can give a facial block and manage the surgery per se. But it's always good to Botox them and a couple of weeks down the line operate, because that can always increase the intraocular pressure with spasm.
Yes.
And a very rare phenomenon is called thyroid eye disease reactivation. So these could be patients who've just had mild to moderate thyroid eye disease. Now they are inactive. And cataract surgery is one of the commonest reasons why their disease activity can reactivate decades after their thyroid has been stabilized. So in these patients, it's important to tell them about this very rare possibility. Thank you.
And Dr. Milind, would you, if it is said that if you give a block is when the thyroid gets reactivated, does it happen even with topical?
There is no data about topical, but when they looked at what reactivates it, any periocular surgery in future. And obviously, statistically, cataract is the commonest thing, so it came out as the most obvious.
Thank you. That was great information.